Oh, right. Ranking of Kings is really fucking good.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's an anime.
Yeah.
In case that wasn't apparent. It is inarguably the best high fantasy anime I have seen in a really long time.
Really?
It's both like a high fantasy anime, but also kind of a shonen show, but not to the point where the whole contrivance is characters fighting.
Hi, buddy. There's my boy. My dog got a haircut yesterday.
Yeah.
And so there's bunnies in my yard. We see lots of rabbits, sure. But 2 days ago, I was out on my back deck with my dog in the morning, just enjoying my coffee, doing my mobile games, and I look up and my dog he's like really interested in a specific corner of my yard, and then I see him like plunge his nose like 6 inches lower than it should go. I'm like, uh-oh. And then I start hearing really loud squeaks. I was like, oh no! So I run over there. He's found a nest of baby bunnies.
Oh no.
So I'm like, oh shit, cover it back up real quick. There's 2 like newborn, like they have got to be like maybe 3 days old. Very, very baby bunnies. And a really nice little nest. Baby bunnies are famously good at hiding, so they have avoided his note. Like, they don't have a scent. I learned that. They don't have a really strong scent, so even though he went back out to that nest and started digging, like trying to get to them, and he missed them by like a good 6 inches. But because baby bunnies don't have a scent, don't make a sound, and don't move, he could not, my golden retriever could not fucking find them. So we have to keep him away from that nest for like a couple of weeks, waiting for the baby bunnies to grow up and get the hell out of here.
Yeah. So also a well-known dog problem.
Yeah. Well, apparently Eastern cottontails are known to make nests in yards with big dogs because they consider the big dog to be a predator deterrent, not a predator in itself. Yeah, there's Finn in our yard, there's another big dog in the yard behind us. So this is a pretty secure spot if you're trying to raise some babies. Except that my dog really wants to hold your babies in his mouth and just carry them. So I have to keep him away from them.
Yeah. My brain just decided that was interesting idea for like world building. And like imagine a fantasy setting where like people make like a settlement or whatever at the bottom of a mountain controlled by like some big monster because the other monsters won't go up there.
Oh yeah.
And you're like 50-50 odds that it comes down and wants to try to pet us lethally.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
You gotta judge, like, okay, this monster is slightly less hostile, so we will live near this monster because it scares the other monsters off.
Right.
The hawk's not gonna jump down here and get because there's a fucking monster here.
Yeah, it's not really interested in killing us. It's just sort of interested in us, which is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But not in a, like, it wants to hunt, kill, and eat us. It just, like, doesn't know that it's a monster and just wants to pet humans. And that's deadly. Which sounds like that's what Finn just wants to, like, pick them up and carry them.
He just wants to have one in his mouth. He's not gonna eat it. He just wants to hold it. But he doesn't realize that you can't hold a baby bunny in your mouth.
Yeah.
You can't do that, buddy.
Yeah, same idea. I feel bad for the people who started listening to this and were like, "Oh man, a Ranking of Kings review," and then we just ADHD'd away from the rest
I'm sorry. Yeah, talk about Ranking of Kings.
Part of me was like, we didn't loop back around to this, and maybe I'll just leave it hanging because it's funny. Like, there's gonna be someone in the audience who's like, "Oh, I really wanted to know about the rest of that," and we just never finish it.
Okay, so you talk about Ranking of Kings.
Sure, it's on Crunchyroll and it's in English. And the English dub is pretty good.
Yeah, dubs fucking rule now.
Yeah,
kids these days don't know how good they got it.
It's true. It's so true. And the big thing that like sort of sets it apart from every other show of a similar genre or genre blend is that the main character is disabled. Both like...
Really?
Yep, he's deaf and nonverbal. That's the word.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, and also is kind of implied to also be like developmentally disabled, which is sort of a plot point. He's kind of magically developmentally disabled, but it's still kind of a big deal. And just, like, I guess a warning, the first couple episodes are about how, like, people treat him poorly, because he's disabled. But then that sets up the framework for, and the contrast for, there are people who don't treat him poorly, and there are people who are like, I understand you're disabled, let's find a thing that works for you and your disability.
Oh, that's wonderful.
You have to kind of understand the framework that, like, this is a place that is unkind, like, the world is unkind to him, and that makes the people who are so much more valuable.
Yeah.
And there is a character who I will not reveal who or what they are, who tell him pretty early on, like, I know you want to give up, but remember that you are precious and beloved to many, and that's so important, so don't give up. And that's, like, in one of the first 4 episodes, and it's just, like, it's so fucking compelling, and every character is complicated and interesting. No black hats. No one is pure evil or, like, cloyingly good. Everyone is fucking complicated and interesting, and it will set up a character to be like, wow, what an asshole. I bet he's gonna be pure antagonistic. And then they have a sympathetic turn.
Okay.
Every single character. I'm not really much of a hardcore anime fan anymore, but, like, I heard from a bunch of different people that this was really good, and they were all very different people. And when, like, a whole bunch of very different people are like, no, this show is good, you're like, oh, I bet it is really good if a whole bunch of people with very different tastes all agree.
Yeah, yeah.
So I went to the trouble of finding it and putting it on, and I was like, oh shit, anime is good again. Welcome to Bonus Experience.
We're a podcast with a deeper look at the play experience and the finer details of running and writing games.
We are queer women speaking with authority about games.
And yes, we swear.
Die mad about it. I'm Monica, your host, podcaster, professional game designer, mechanics maven, wearer of pants.
You do wear pants.
I do wear pants. And long coats.
Hey, you've got like this whole like cowboy wizard thing going lately that I'm really into. I'm Rai. I'm not a cowboy wizard. Someday, maybe. I don't know. I don't think cowboy wizard is ever an aesthetic that I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But it's not like, I don't know what my, I think the closest I've come to an aesthetic is I'd really love to be like goblin chic.
Yeah, yeah.
So I could wear like a Snuggie, but have like flawless makeup. But also like dollar store rings, like big chunky plastic. Yeah, thank you. What else am I? I am a professional game writer and designer and facilitator. And you know me. You know Monica. It's been 5 years of this.
Yeah, I mean theoretically, someone could be tuning in just now. We could have new fans. Ideally, we are consistently raking in new fans. That's sort of the goal.
True.
We do want more people to listen to us. Please tell your friends about it. Make your friends listen to us.
Yeah.
Hold them down.
Hold them down. But like in a friendly...
Yeah, put it on in the car where they can't
like
change the dial.
Yes, there you go. Yeah, like take your friend on a really long drive, don't tell them where they're going, and just put on Bonus Experience.
Yeah, I mean...
And then stare at them while you drive.
Don't.
You like it?
Please keep your eyes on the road, but stare at them metaphorically.
Today we're going to talk about forever GMs.
We sure are.
Monica.
Yes.
What is a forever GM? And are they good or bad? Because I need to have a moral judgment attached to this concept.
Okay. Thanks, Twitter.
No problem.
A forever GM is the person in a gaming group who always runs or facilitates the game. Usually this is in the context of D&D, where they're the only person willing to run adventures or campaigns, but let's be real, it's not limited to it. You can have a forever GM who always introduces the gaming group to new things, or the forever GM who's the only person brave enough to run Exalted, or Shadowrun, or Mage, or so on.
So I think the forever GM actually serves a really valuable purpose. I keep hearing it in the context of people who are forced into this position, though, which is never good. You don't want to make someone constantly run your games if they don't want to be doing that. They're going to get burnt out. You're going to lose a GM, and also don't make people do things they don't want to do.
Yeah.
But I think that a willing forever GM, an enthusiastic forever GM, is a really valuable role to play in the gaming community at large.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really think they're good or bad. It's kind of a neutral state of affairs, other than like the forced position, like you just said. Don't make your friends do things they don't want to do. However, that sort of ties directly into my next point, which is that they can be kind of frustrating for the person assuming this role. There are a number of perceived barriers to entry to running / facilitating games, and we do cover ways to help get over that in some of our earlier episodes, which we'll try to remember to drop into the show notes.
Right. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. They listen, we will try to provide links, but, maybe you should just listen to our back catalog.
Just go have a good time
Just go have a good time with it. Just go find them, and, if you're listen to this episode, there's other ones, underneath it or above it, so maybe just click on another one. We got some good GMing advice. Anyway.
There's 24 hours worth of bonus experience. Just go have some time.
Yeah, have some fun.
Just go enjoy. Go enjoy us.
Yeah, just have fun with us. So why do we like forever GMs, and what the fuck is a game ambassador? Because that's going to be in the title of the episode.
Well, I honestly like to think of the forever GM as an entry point to the game. Because they're either passionate about the game, or they possess system mastery, or if we're lucky, they have both, which makes them a great ambassador to the game. My best example of this is our buddy Terry, who has been running Mage for new players for over a year now, I think. He's basically had this new player introduction program that he's running, that he's just been introducing people to Mage, which is fucking awesome. He's an ambassador for Mage, basically. My worst example of this is Shadowrun, and I think kind of infamously in a previous episode I talked about how the Shadowrun core book was the only game book I've ever had to return to a game store, because after opening it I realized it would be impossible for me to run it without someone actually demonstrating the game for me. And Shadowrun players have later confirmed that for me, that yes, I do need someone to actually run Shadowrun for me and kind of initiate me into it before I can actually figure out how to run it on my own.
Yeah, weren't our acolytes of the good doctor trying to get us to play Nobilis and Glitch and Wisher Theurge Fatalist? And then they were like, oh, but don't actually read the book. Let us show you how to do it.
Yes. Yeah, we've had a couple of friends don't read Glitch. We will play Glitch, and then you can read Glitch. Which I'm down for.
Yeah, I'm down for it,
Jenna
too.
doesn't make games, she makes gay experiences.
Yeah, please, I would like to experience these things the way they were intended to be experienced, and that is through a disciple of the good doctor telling me about them.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
yes.
And now I'm like, did Jenna do that on purpose?
It's possible.
It's
I don't
possible.
know.
I'm even if she's listening to this episode going, no, I didn't, I'm gonna give you credit for it anyway.
Jenna, if you're listening, have dinner with me.
Yeah, Jenna, if you're listening, please.
Jenna, I really respect you. Have dinner with me.
Please email us, Jenna, if you're listening. And we would like to talk to you a lot.
Thank you, Jenna.
Yeah,
Thanks,
please.
Jenna.
Yeah, please. Are you proud of me?
Dr. Moran, please.
Dr. Moran, please. All right, but also hey, if I don't run Exalted, nobody will play it with me. Which, you know what? That's not
right?
true. That's not 100% true. H will run it, and I've got you. I have a lot of friends who are really into Exalted, but outside of that group of people, if I don't run Exalted, nobody will play it with me. And H and I have a symbiotic relationship, is mutual forever GMs.
You're like binary stars orbiting each other.
Orbiting each other. If she's not the forever GM, it's me. Mm-hmm. And we have pretty different taste in games that we want to run, actually, so that kind of makes it pretty nice for our group, because I will run very different games than she will. And so our group kind of gets a nice exposure to a whole bunch of things. And it also means that I get to play in things that I wouldn't normally run, and vice versa.
Yeah.
But we're also very lucky to have an extremely easygoing group who really aren't all that interested in the work of facilitating games. And this is fine, honestly. Facilitation is a lot of work. Mm-hmm. And but the cool thing is that they will try anything that we put in front of them. They've never said no to anything. We've been like, I'm not that into it. Sometimes we realize in the middle of play that it is just not, we just weren't that into it, but that's okay. No one's ever been like, let's not play this game based on its title.
Yeah.
They'll try anything, and that's awesome. Get you a game group who will just try anything. And so we keep buying games for ourselves, but also to show them, because we know they're going to be like, yeah, sure, we'll try that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and this puts us into a good place to talk about being a game ambassador. When you are the person who always runs the game, and especially for a group like mine, you're not just being the person who makes the good time happen, you're the person introducing them to other things out there. Like you just described, someone like Terry, who has so much passion for a game like Mage, can make other people become fans too.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yep.
good old reverse gatekeeping at its finest. Drag all your friends into everything you like.
And that's also like just a basic like a teaching kind of in it. That's like what am I trying to say? That's like the experience of having a really great teacher.
Mm-hmm.
A really great teacher, just, you know, like in a school setting, is someone who's really passionate about what they're teaching you. And that passion is so easy to transmit. It's so easy to have that come through into your students, who will also get passionate about this thing that you are just so excited to teach them. And it's kind of like my single favorite XKCD comic is the one about how you shouldn't make fun of people for admitting they don't know things. And it ran through like this huge equation on how many people there are in the US who are just now learning about something for the first time. And it comes out to like, there's 10,000 people a day who learn a new thing or something like that. So it's like, don't be like, oh, what, you don't know? Oh my God. You'd be like, oh my God, you're one of the lucky 10,000. I get to tell you about this. This is great.
Yeah.
Which is, I like to bring that energy to when people are like, oh, I've never played such and such, or I've never heard of this game. I'd be like, oh, really? And I get to tell them about it.
They're like, oh, you're in for a
That's
treat.
exciting.
Oh, you're going to love it. Yeah, yeah.
You're going to love it. Oh, this is so, yeah.
That's the right
Yeah.
energy to have. It really is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. On that note, I think it's time for the mid-episode break. BXP and the mid-episode break room are brought to you by the Misdirected Mark Network.
Bing.
Become a BXP patron. Patrons get to chat with us
Hey,
directly.
what's up?
They get special Discord roles and exclusive hangouts. You can support us for as little as $1 a month.
Yep.
I keep forgetting to throw this in here, but if you give us $50, we will do a very brief ad read, like for your game or your Kickstarter or whatever. So if you are not sure how to get your stuff out there, give us $50. If you give us $20, you become a certified Margaret, and Ray makes you a terrible certificate. They're
It's so
amazing.
bad.
They're so
it's
bad.
really
They are bad
awful.
on purpose. Print them out. Put them in your office. If you're working in an office with other people, it will make your coworkers question you. And if you are working from home, it will make you happy every time you look at it.
Yes. And they're all
Yes.
bespoke. I make them all individually. I find a whole new
Handcrafted.
certificate word template to butcher. They're all unique and terrible in their own special way.
Yeah. And if you don't like Patreon, you can also support us on Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/bonusexp, which has the same monthly subscriptions with the same rewards.
Yep.
We wanted to make sure, because I also know that Patreon, the Ko-fi is sometimes a little easier for overseas folks.
Yep.
Or, like, non-US folks. So if you prefer Ko-fi and you want to support us there, the rewards are all the same. If you give us money there, the Ko-fi bot will give you the role. You get all the same benefits of being a patron. It's just from on another website.
Yeah.
You
And
can-
we're still discussing, there's a very good chance that we'll be actually like moving from Patreon to Ko-fi, if only because Ko-fi is better for international patrons and Ko-fi isn't buying into this fucking
Crypto nonsense.
crypto bullshit that, yeah, don't even get me fucking started. Ko-fi is vastly superior, but we still need to, like, you know, take our time with this and not just drop one and go straight to the other.
Yeah, we are thinking about slowly moving over, so if you want to migrate your stuff over there, go for it. Also, we have a merch page, bxpcast.com/bxpswag. We are sponsored by Nerdy Kepi. You can get all kinds of rad queer swag and exclusive BXP swag. There's stuff on that site that are not anywhere else. If you use code BXPcast at checkout, you will get 10% off, and it never expires. And they did raise their prices a little bit, so that gives you a good reason to go and use the code. And they got shorts now.
They got shorts now?
They got shorts now. Yeah, they have like cool gym shorts, and I bought myself several pairs.
Athletic shorts, really?
Yeah, they got athletic shorts. They got button downs. They got joggers. They got skirts. They got dresses with pockets. They got all kinds of things that gay people like.
Bowling shirts.
Pins and stickers and bowling shirts and mugs. And I have a tank top from there that says, kindly consider dying mad about it, which is not actually BXP swag. It's just one of their shirts.
It's adjacent.
Yeah.
Go support a queer-owned business. It's like we actually have a bunch of people like a bunch of friends that are like on the payroll there. This
Yep.
is not some like big like Redbubble conglomerate.
No,
This
no,
is literally
no.
like we have some buddies who own a business and they make really cool merch. So support them. Check it
Yes,
out.
please support them. Yeah, and you can use that code over and over again.
BXP cast.
BXP cast.
10% off.
Yes.
Never expires.
Also, if you are broke and are like, man, Monica and Rai, I love you guys, but I have no money, we are like, ooh, girl, we feel you. Saying nice things is always free. You can leave us a good review on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Google, wherever, and help us get more listeners. I don't know where you found us, but wherever you found us, find a way to give us a good review, or just tell your friends. Tell your whole gaming group. Tell a Discord server you're on. Tell them how great we are. That costs $0, and we truly, truly appreciate it.
Yep, we sure do.
So if you like bonus experience, you'll also like They're a Super Geek. They're a Super Geek is an actual play, one-shot live stream created by 3 BIMPOC players to highlight the voices of marginalized folks in the TTRPG scene. They feature gender-marginalized GMs and a diverse rotating cast of players. Tune in every other Thursday from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern on the Misdirected Mark Twitch. Alright, so, Ray,
Yeah.
why are people afraid to try running new games?
Well, I think one reason why is just lack of system mastery, which is, I mean, that's a big reason why people are afraid to run any game, period. Facilitating a game requires a lot of a person, and it can be very intimidating. And a lot of people feel like if I am not an expert at this game, I have no business running it, which isn't exactly true. And I know that we have another episode where we talk about how to run a game. I think that's like season 1.
We have a couple of those.
We'll put that in the notes.
Yeah. We have several of them.
And specifically with advice on how to run a game, even if you aren't necessarily a master at it, which is basically it comes down to just fake it. Speak with authority and confidence.
Yeah.
And if someone is like, well, I don't think that rule is right, oh, okay. And if it's a really quick fix it. And if it's not, go, okay, well, we'll run it like this for now. And then after the end of the game, we'll talk about, changes going forward. Easy. As far as running new games, like new games, I mean, you've already got a favorite, you've already got the books and the dice and the minis, you've already got a handle on the rules and making content for your players. So with a new game, it can be intimidating to start over on a whole new system and a whole new setting. And I mean, I fucking get that. Like, for a long time, all I played was Exalted. So when people were like, oh, but let's play D&D, I was like, but I already have all the Exalted books. And it was honestly kind of a downward.
It's a little bit downgrade.
It was a down. Whatever. And also there's just straight up clannishness. There's been some warranted and some unwarranted pushback lately over the, like, please play a new game, like, movement. So some of it is just clannishness and stubbornness. Just a fuck you, I will continue playing D&D harder. Just like, all right, cool, all right, buddy.
You're totally right. And like we keep repeating, we have an episode on getting over the hump of feeling like you must have system mastery, because you don't. You really don't. Not. You don't. It's not required. You just
listen. I don't even have system mastery of the games that I write for. System mastery is a myth.
It is. You just need to be willing to reference the book or to make calls off the cuff, which involves acting with confidence and, boldness, I guess. Boldly go forward. Do it.
Yeah.
I believe in you. And sometimes, I'm going to be honest, your calls will be bad. I've made bad calls. That's okay. You can just say, sorry, that was a bad call. Let's figure out a better option if that comes up again to your player. And I get that apologizing and owning up to your mistakes can be very hard, and it's kind of vulnerable, but, like, let's be real, it's about a game.
Yeah.
And that's a great time to practice grace with real low stakes.
Yeah, honestly. It's a good way to, it's a good way to get in your experience at apologizing for your mistakes, because the worst that can happen, it's a fucking game. You got a game rule wrong. It's not a big deal.
There's really not a big deal. Maybe you've hurt someone's feelings, and that can really feel weird, but, like, it was over a game rule. It's not like you hurt someone's feelings in a serious relationship. Don't worry about it. Practice grace, low stakes. Yeah. Also, let's talk about play something else for a sec.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I was very recently struck by the sort of realization that people sometimes say just run stuff in D&D, but what they mean is use a D20 and modifiers and maybe hit points or healing surges and some spells and or classes to prop up the improvisational roleplay of the story we want to tell. And they don't actually mean cram that square peg of every single rule in the game entirely into this round hole. And straight up, if you're doing the former, that is fine. And while that likely annoys me to call it D&D, that's not because I'm like a D&D purist who thinks you have to use every rule. It's actually because I'm like, no, you made up a thing. You took these other rules, massaged them into something else. Give yourself credit for that. You did a game design.
Yes, you made a game. You're not playing D&D anymore. But that's not something I'm saying with derision. That's something I'm saying with awe. Like, you're not playing D&D anymore. You're making your own game.
Yeah. Take credit for that. I'm proud of you. Though I will say that branching out and playing other things will create that sort of improvised game you're making at home so much easier. And I encourage you to learn new things, not so that you can just quit playing D&D and never play D&D, your favorite game, ever again. I would never ask you to stop playing your favorite game, but so that you can make off-the-cuff decisions at home when you are making up your own shit so much better. Like, the thing about playing other games is that it teaches you different stuff that are not present in D&D, and I think that's why some people get het up about it.
Yeah.
Because the tools that are in the toolbox of D&D 5th edition do not cover everything. And there's a lot of stuff out there that can definitely just make your game better by learning about what they are. And very recently, I introduced a friend to the PBTA social question askers, literally earlier this week, specifically for use in a D&D-like frame, because she was the person talking about how, like, they played all these games in D&D, and then when I asked a couple more questions, it was like, oh, we just kind of just rolled some D20s. And I was like, oh no, so you made up improv tools. You made that.
Yeah.
You made that. And like I was like, okay, so you could have this like charisma roll, and based on, I showed her the Omni system success chart, which is basically like the PBTA partial success chart, but specifically for a D20 plus modifier. And I was like, yeah, if you understand that like partial success makes things significantly more interesting, here's these specific questions you can ask behind the success that they rolled on this chart. And you can control the way players ask for information about solving a mystery based on their charisma roll. And she was like, holy shit, that's so much easier. I don't have to, like, when someone makes a nat 20 on a charisma check, I don't have to make the hard decision to be coy or to give away the whole plot, because I have the structure that tells me what information I can give away, right?
Yeah. Like think about how, you know, like some people get really, really, really into randomized tables. I like to write randomized tables. I love to design randomized tables. I hate gaming with randomized tables because the ideal randomized table has a lot of really cool shit on it, and you're only going to see like one or two things. So think of if you're going to use this question asker idea for modifying your D&D game, think of it as creating a randomized table, but then instead of, okay, we'll roll to see which of these questions you get to ask, instead it's roll to see how many of these questions you can ask. So it's not just, okay, we'll pick one cool thing at random. It's you get to decide which of these cool things you want to ask or interface with or whatever.
And the questions I proposed were, what is the character really feeling? What do they wish I'd do? How can I get them to blank? What aren't they telling me? Who do they hold negative emotions towards? Who do they hold positive emotions towards? And the suggested system I made lets you ask up to 3 of them, and there are 6 questions.
Yeah,
so there will always be something on that list that you can't get the answer to.
Yeah.
And then I threw out a little advice that when you say, like, what aren't they telling me, you don't have to give away the plot secrets, but you can give away hints that, like, because she's thinking about writing, like, a Weird West game. And so my suggestion was, like, oh, if someone asks, what aren't they telling me, you could be like, because if they're investigating, like, the town marshal, he might be hiding his secret affair with the Undertaker because he's afraid of blackmail, rather than be revealed that he's participating in the rampant corruption that the characters are pursuing, right?
Right.
You don't have to give away that lead, but you can give away that he's afraid of being blackmailed, because that is also still important, right?
Yeah. That's good stuff.
Thank you.
Man. Question askers are so good.
Yeah, and like
every game should have question askers.
They should, but I also feel like giving that particular advice of like, hey, when someone asks, what aren't they telling me, that you don't have to give away the farm.
Yeah.
The answer has to be correct and honest, but it doesn't have to give everything away. But also, you don't want to stonewall people. I mean, also, this really wasn't a realization. I kind of always knew that people do this. I've done it.
Yeah.
But it was just kind of eye-opening to consider it a little bit more formally. And also because I kind of just wrote a little system guide for my friend, I was like, maybe I can just write these little system guides and sell them. Do you think people would buy that?
Yeah. Yeah, just like a basic, like, so you're playing D&D, but not really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's some little widgets to add.
Yeah, here's
so
a
you're
whole
not
bunch
exactly
of widgets
D&D.
to like put into your game. Here's a little way to modify the dice rolls. Here's a whole bunch of things to think about. Like, this isn't, I'm not telling you what the game is or the setting is. I'm just giving you the tools so that you can make that up.
Yeah, like little system agnostic.
Yeah, and like I also suggested that she look at Fate Accelerated because what they were doing with D&D was basically just Fate Accelerated.
Oh, yes, Fate Accelerator. Okay, well, on that note, like, I think we need to start talking about good places to begin with games that are kind of easy to run, easy to learn, and easy to play.
Oh boy. Easy is so subjective. Like, we literally just talked about Fate and PBTA, but there are a lot of people who bounce off of those games. Or don't even really like them. That's just not for them. Or they just kind of don't grasp the things that they do, right? And this is okay. Not all games have to be for people. There's plenty of games out there that aren't
not
for me.
every game is for every person.
Yeah, plenty of games out there that aren't for me. And I could say that, like, maybe you want to start with games more focused specifically on storytelling, like Wanderhome, or any of the other games we read last season, like Gunslinger, is another good sort of very storytelling-focused game. But that might not be easy for you if you don't have a background already in improvisation and mutual storytelling. Like, if you're a person who came up on, like, role-playing online on forums or chat rooms, this might actually be a good gateway for you.
Yeah.
Because you already have that background, or if you've taken improv classes or are an improv comic, that sort of thing might actually be much easier for you than something more structured, right? But if you're not, this might be too much freedom.
Yes. Yeah. As we've seen with the tweet that passed through our collective consciousness, this guy who was like, I hate Fate, and he read like 800 pages of Fate, and he hates that it isn't a physics simulator. He thinks that narrative games are for people who don't get math. He thinks it's uselessly sentimental to want your character to not die. And also there's no falling damage.
All right, piss off, Carl.
And the person who shared the tweet who shared this on Twitter was like, okay, please don't track this commenter down and bully them. I was just sharing this because this is a perspective that's so antithetical to my own. This is Klaus von H on Twitter who shared this. Okay. But then, of course, we all had a fucking go at it. Like, oh, okay, right. If a game doesn't have falling damage, obviously it's inferior. And then we found someone who made a whole game that was the only system was falling damage.
It's really funny.
Right. Some people bounce off of Fate because they're not looking for something that's got a lot of narrative oomph. They're looking for something that is just a physics simulator.
Yeah. And like, if Fate is not for you, don't be like that about it.
Yeah. Don't be like, well, this is people don't know math. No, fuck you, Carl. Like, Carl is not a good, fuck you, Chadwick.
Steve. Josh.
Christopher.
God. Matthew.
What other white guy names do we know?
James. But in, like, D&D 5th edition has a ton of rules and a lot of inflexible parts, but you can throw a rock and hit a game of it, so the accessibility of that might be easy to you. Also, it's easy to come by, it's easy to purchase, and it's easy to find support for.
Yeah, they've tried, Wizards got that money, so they've done everything they can to make sure that D&D is constantly there. Like, it may not be, like, accessible the way we think about accessible, but the actual materials, like the ability to spend money on D&D, very easy.
Right, so, like, there are spell cards if you don't like referencing a book. There are all kinds of tools that change the way you play it. It's very easy to find a game. There are tons and tons of YouTube videos, TikTok videos, tutorials that show you how to make characters and teach you how to play the game, right? So, like, if we're talking simply about ease of use, simply because of its ubiquitousness, it's easy to use. There's so many things out there.
Mm-hmm.
Even if, like, us system aficionados are like, well, it's not the best system-wise.
There's a lot of support for D&D 5e.
Right, which makes it easy to get into because of the amount of support. Even if, you and I are like, well, it's not the best rules-wise, but some people really just don't give a shit. And that's okay.
Yeah.
And then, like, things like Exalted Essence, which was literally written with ease of use in mind, it's still fucking exalted. And that manuscript is still 400 pages long.
Yeah. Exalted. I mean, yeah. Yeah. I still love Exalted. Exalted is still my favorite. and I love to work and play in Exalted,
Mm-hmm.
but it is very Exalted. Yeah, it's super Exalted. I honestly, I think when people ask about, okay, well then what's a game that's easy? I think when some people ask this, they're really asking for like, what are some gateway games? Like, okay, well, if I've got D&D, then what else should I be playing? Like, okay, you want a transitional game. You want a game that would take you from D&D into something else that's similar to D&D, but different enough to give you a new experience. And a lot of times, like, I'll point you to a Powered by the Apocalypse game, like Dungeon World, honestly, which is fraught because one of the creators was a fucking sex pest. But, I mean, damn, it is definitely a D&D PBTA game.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, a well-designed PBTA is about an archetypal narrative. And when I am asked, like, okay, well, what about a similar game? I'm thinking about games that tell similar stories. If you're looking for a similar system, that's like a whole other kettle of fish. But the good news is you can't throw a rock without hitting a D20 game now either. It's not just for D&D 5e. Like, everybody's got their own variants on that now.
We're doing the D20 OGL again. We could do a whole episode on everything old is new again.
Yep.
I guess what we're saying is that there's just not a very good answer to this question. I think the desire to teach or play a game with your friends really overrides everything else.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, what are you willing to learn? What aligns with your taste? What tones and themes do your group enjoy?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, genre and style are gonna go a really long way, right? Like, if your game if your group's
definitely
just not that into fantasy, there's no amount of Exalted being cool that's going to make them like it, because it's a fantasy game.
Yep. You can't really take the fantasy out of it.
It definitely puts a whole bunch of genres in a blender and then hits it on high speed, and we're gonna do an episode about that, actually. About Exalted and genre. It's gotta be it's not a BXP season if we don't do an Exalted episode. So we're gonna talk about Exalted and genre later. But, like, it's still at its core sort of mostly fantasy. And there's no separating it from that. Unless you, like, completely reinvent the system. Or the setting, rather. Which you can do. That's cool.
Yeah.
It's awesome to do in Exalted AU.
Yes. Yeah. I have actually been spending a lot of, like, mental energy trying to think of a modern... Not the modern shard that exists already, although, you know, it's okay. But yeah, I mean, it's really hard to take the fantasy out of Exalted as compared to, like, D&D, where it's like, okay, you want a modern D&D? Okay, you fucking play Shadowrun. Oh, I mean, you find someone to run Shadowrun for you.
Oh, they're reprinting, they're redoing, they're doing a 5th edition D20 Modern, which honestly I'm kind of excited about. I love D20 Modern.
Oh. Okay.
Like, listen, D20... This is also nostalgia glasses, because D20 Modern was still very much kind of, like, cleaned up 3.5 back in the D20 OGL days, but, like, we played a really fun game of it, and I, like, mostly just remember that. And so I was like, ooh, D20 Modern. Ooh, D20 Modern again. Ooh, I'd like to see what they do with it this time. It's done by the same people.
I do love an urban fantasy.
I do love an urban fantasy.
I am a bit of a slut for urban fantasy. Not supernatural, okay?
Yeah, no.
Like, I'm okay with supernatural. I'm really more about the urban fantasy.
Yeah, definitely, like, I went, oh, of all the things, of all the D20 things that were coming out now, this OGL 2, they were like, hey, the people who made D20 Modern in the first place are doing it again 20 years later, and I was like, oh, perhaps I will purchase it.
Mayhaps I will twist. And take and peep. So, I mean, okay.
Pugmire.
So I already worked
things
this
that
out,
are like
and I don't...
D&D games
that
do something very different.
How did I forget about Pugmire?
I looked over at my shelf, and Pugmire was right there, and I was like, oh, Pugmire!
How the fuck did I forget about Pugmire? All right. Okay. Pugmire is a great transitional game. It is. I mean, it still takes the best of the D20 5e that we have now and puts it into a different setting. And honestly, it's a very compelling... It's interesting. I mean, you could say it's cute, but there's, there's kind of a sliding scale, because there's some stuff that's like, ooh, dire. Oh, wow, there's stakes to this. But it's, you're playing dogs. You're playing dogs and cats, and you're fantasy dogs, and it's really cute. Really cute. And I've run it for our buddy Ryan, and I had a blast running it, and it was just great. I mean, channel your inner furry and play Pugmire. But I also had, like, this whole flow chart where I came up with, and now I'm not sure, like, I kind of want to see what Monica thinks of this, about, like, if you were trying to, like, boil the frog, as it were, and, like, try to transition your players from D&D 5e to Exalted Essence with, like, the least amount of, like, trouble. the
Okay.
least amount of complaining. I would probably say go from D&D 5e to D&D 4e
Okay.
to Blades in the Dark,
Okay.
and then to Essence.
Hmm.
What do you think of that?
I think that's too many steps.
You think that's too many steps?
I think you can actually just go straight from 5e to Essence without a problem.
Really? You think so?
Yes. Yeah.
Even though the
think so.
setting and the
I think
systems
you
are
should
so
s-
different.
I think you should definitely play 4th edition and Blades in the Dark because they are both excellently designed games. And I would like you to read and study those for two very different reasons. Like if we're in Professor Dice Wizard Monica's classroom right now. These are homework, but they are homework for two very different reasons. But like, okay, so because actually Essence was designed specifically in mind to be the next step after 5th edition.
But I mean for it to be like, not as a, okay guys, we're going to try this new game and it's so different and you're going to love it. I mean in the sense of like trying to kind of trick someone into like, hey, wait a minute, we're not playing D&D anymore.
I think you can go right from one to the other.
Okay, that's a bold choice.
Yeah, let me kind of break down a little bit why.
Okay.
So first off, if you've played a lot of D&D 5th edition, you already understand how class features and racial features work.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward, right? And that translates pretty directly into exalted advantages and anima effects.
Okay, sure. All right, I'm with you.
It's pretty straightforward. That kind of thing, very direct. Also, if you're playing a solar, unless your D&D character is really tied up in being non-human, or like some of the weirder parts of D&D spellcasting, you can pretty much make any D&D character directly into a solar.
Really?
Unless it's a druid, in which case they're a lunar.
Okay. All right. See, that's why. All right. I'm glad you said unless it's a druid.
Right. Well, so like pretty much any druid concept is either a full moon or a no moon, more or less, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Unless you're like also playing a druid who's big on the charisma thing, in which case you got a changing moon there. But like if you're big on shapeshifting and being like a bog witch, that's 100% a no moon.
Yeah.
Full stop.
I mean, absolutely.
And you can even take whatever your druid spirit shape was from D&D and carry it over to Exalted without a problem.
But I'm more
But,
interested in how you said that like literally every D&D class could just be a solar.
Yeah, like you got a cleric.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on what kind of cleric. You're looking at a whole bunch of possible solar options, but you do have to understand that like Exalted doesn't treat healer as a role.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not important to it. Like you heal by either doing downtime recovery, or you have like long-term over effects, or you are like a wise sage who knows medicine. It doesn't treat healer as a role. So that's a slight adjustment, but I don't think that's hard for people to understand.
No.
And also Essence by default does not care about characters dying. Like that's not important to it. When I say it doesn't care, I mean like the goal is to keep people playing, not to present death as a threat. Because
yes, right. Death is
because
not,
you're demigod superheroes.
Out of the box, death is not one of the stakes.
Right. It's
There's
not
way worse things that
stakes.
can happen.
So when you realize that, like, okay, this is a game where we're all sort of super powerful characters, we are all working together, and death is not one of the stakes, you don't have to worry about healing, right? Because when you're playing D&D, death is one of the stakes that prevents you from continuing the campaign, and so you need healer as a role to play in that space, right?
Right.
And this is just a difference of how the game treats that approach. And once you understand that, that's not hard to grasp.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
It's not a tough concept. I actually am running for a bunch of folks from the internet, and 2 of them are brand new, and 2 of them are experienced, and so that's going to be really interesting. And I walked through one of my friends through making her human barbarian into a Dawncast.
Yes,
real
perfect.
fucking
great.
easy. Real
no
fucking
notes.
easy. Yeah. Well, you can make a Dawncast, a paladin, a barbarian, a fighter,
a ranger
even.
A
like
monk.
ranger sort of dips a little bit into Nightcast, depending on what you're doing.
Or Zenith, even.
Or Zenith. Yeah, Zenith also does paladin pretty well. Like, it's pretty easy unless you're really invested in, like, the spell casting part to kind of carry it over. And even, like, I'm a wizard, you know, I want to memorize spells, I want to do big spell casting things, well then you have sorcery.
Yeah.
Which is just wizardly spell casting on fucking steroids. Like,
yeah.
Or necromancy. Like, if you want to be a necromancer, like, you have that option there. And if you want to go with the whole, like, warlock, someone else gave me this power, I make a blade out of magic, you know, I summon dark things, well, you've got infernal and abyssal right there.
Yeah, there you go. It's covered.
Yeah, and if you're really a big fan of like playing Warforged, Alchemical is right
You
there.
got Alchemical right there.
You got
Yeah.
Alchemical, yeah. I don't know that there's an undead D&D class, but like if you always wish there was, or race rather, but if you always wish there was, Liminal is right there.
I keep seeing rules for Revenant style
Yeah,
characters,
sure.
but I'm not sure if that was
4th
homebrew
edition
or
had
not.
a Revenant.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were undead. Okay,
You could play a
if you
Revenant.
if you like Revenant, Liminal is right there.
Yep.
And if you were like, none of the above, I want to make up my own guy, Exigent is right there.
Exit is right there. It's really easy to make up your own guy.
Yeah.
I guess Monk would be like, all right, well, here's our party sidereal.
Yeah, like if you're really into the martial arts part of the monk thing, that makes sidereal really easily, but anybody can be, literally any exalt can be a good unarmed combatant.
Yep.
So whoever's running the game for the new D&D person is going to have to be like, okay, well, what are your expectations? Like, what sort of things do you want to do? And then the rest is, like, I know there's a lot of, like, new people don't understand how to roll dice, and it's like, no, they don't, actually. Stop treating new people like they're stupid. I've never had anyone have trouble with learning how the dice pool curve works, right? Yeah. Rolling a fistful of dice, looking for 7, 8, 9, 10, and then counting them is actually super easy.
Yes, right.
It's just nothing hard about that. Like, my 8-year-old niece could do that.
I actually have had more people, like, confused by the pool system itself. Like, okay, wait, how many am I rolling? And I have to say, okay, well, you take this number here and that number there, and you add those, and that's how many dice you're rolling.
Yep. Yeah, the pool.
The end.
Figuring out what two things you add together is the harder part. And then remembering, like, oh, my modifiers add more dice or add successes that are invisible, and then I tally them up after I'm done counting, right? Like,
yeah.
That part's the harder part than people figuring out the base mechanic. And that's just a matter of a customization, right? Like, even if you were teaching someone to play D&D for the first time too, you still have to add two things and modifiers to a roll, right? Like, that step's the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True. Okay.
So, like, it's, and they're both fantasy. And you can ease people into how Exalted is fantasy, but bigger, weirder, scarier, and, more bisexual. And there's a whole lot of places where you can start with things that feel familiar to D&D people.
Yeah, I mean, okay, if you're like, I want to play a tiefling, though, it's like, all right, cool, you're demon-blooded.
Right.
I want to play an Aarakocra, though. All right, cool, you're an eagle folk. Like, there's so many...
Yep.
Yeah.
Tabaxi.
I want to play an elf. Okay, you're fey-blooded.
Sure. Or you can just be a human who looks weird.
You could just be a weird-looking human. But that's not as exciting as, I am an elf. I am a demon person and I'm sexy and bisexual.
If the thing you were into with tieflings is just like, I want to be a hot person whose skin is a weird color and I have sexy horns and a tail, you can just do that. You're just, like, Exalted's full of people who just look weird.
Yeah,
and like,
that's absolutely accurate. Yes.
Yeah, and so you can totally choose if you're like, I really want to play a tiefling, I really want to have like a demonic heritage, but you don't know anything about Malpheus because Exalted Demon is a whole other kettle of fish, right? You can start being like, well, I look weird and I think I have demonic heritage, and then in game you can learn about who you are. And isn't that fucking cool? And then, like, you get to learn about Malpheus, this really fucking cool aspect of the setting.
And then you're like, oh shit, that's my dad!
Yeah, and then, like, the more you get into it, the more your GM slides you a copy of Games Divinity and is like, pick a guy who's your dad.
Here's your dad catalog.
Right? Or mom.
Or mom.
Yeah, and then, like, maybe that player is like, fuck, I want my dad to be Octavian, or like,
then
my
they
mom
see
to be Mara.
Then they see what's the wasps again? The Agate?
Agate, yeah.
Then they see an Agate and they're like, that's my dad! I want to be a wasp demon! Alright,
like,
cool.
It would be really cool if someone was like, oh, a demon isn't actually my parent, like, my parents are someone else, but a Neoma shaped me to look like this.
Ooh,
that's real good too.
Fuck.
Yeah. Like, but that's
so good.
But you just have to kind of on-ramp people, and it's not hard, actually. It's a matter of asking people what they're looking for and what their expectations are and the things they think are cool, and then not making them eat the whole elephant at once.
Mm-hmm,
You give them little bits, right?
The one thing I would caution, though, is in playing Exalted with people who their primary RPG before that was D&D, I did have to kind of steer them away from, like, heavily Western ideas of fantasy. Like, someone wanted to play, like, the classical knight who had, like, a lord and shit, and was like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, well, there's not as much of that in Exalted. I think the only like classic Western feudalist fantasy that we really have was in the original Abyssals. Is that correct?
Sort of. Sort
Oh,
of.
okay.
Like, it depends on what you're calling traditional Western fantasy, and I think we maybe should put a pin in this for our Exalted genre
Ooh,
episode.
Yes. Hey, Monica.
Yeah.
Where can they find our show?
They can find us at bxpcast.com, part of the Misdirected Mark Network.
What about email? Can they email us? Where's the email?
They can email us, especially if they're Dr. Jenna Moran, about hanging out with us, going to dinner with both of us.
Have dinner with me!
Yeah, please come on the show and talk to us specifically if you're Dr. Jenna Moran.
I don't even expect like what she'd probably like just pass like images of tarot cards to someone like on her Discord server, and then they would message us like third party style, like, okay, Jenna heard your question and she answers with the 7 of Swords, and we have to be like, okay, fuck, what does that mean? Okay, shit.
It's gonna
like...
it's gonna come to us via Vance.
Yes.
Vance is going to like, we're gonna be in the same space, and Vance is gonna pull the 7 of Swords out of their mouth and be like, a message from the good doctor.
And there will be a drawing of a butterfly on the other side of it. We'll be like, oh shit, what does it mean? We're trying to commune with Jenna Moran. Okay, where's our Twitter?
I didn't even say the email address. We just did
email?
a bit.
Sorry.
bonusexpcast@gmail.com.
I got sucked into the bit. What about our Twitters?
Our Twitters are at bonusexpcast, and you could send us cryptic messages there too, as well.
Yes, please do.
Please do.
I would actually really enjoy that.
Right. Yeah, if you want to hang out with us.
If you want to hang out with us.
Our Discord is in fact publicly
we have
open.
A Discord.
We just have special things for patrons if you join. Go to our Discord, tinyurl.com/BXP Discord.
Yeah, it's just that easy.
Yep. We have it linked in a bunch of places.
The doors are always open.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Doors are open, come hang out, come and go as you please. Where are you on Twitter? Tell them.
I'm on Twitter at Ray W. Cole. That's it. That's all I had to say.
Yeah, okay. I'm on Twitter. I'm at Zenith Sun.
And I think that's it.
Yep.
I think that's all. All right. Well, everybody get out.
All right. I got
all right. Change it if you want to.
Change it if you want to.
Farewell.
Goodbye.
Do I have to do this? Ugh, fine. Bonus Experience is written and produced by Monica and Rai, and edited by Margaret. Our logo and art is by Nino Studios. Find her on Facebook and Instagram. Our theme song is Reuse Noise with the Light by CDK, and is used under the Attribution Non-Commercial Creative Commons license. BXP is part of the Misdirected Mark Network. I'm not reading this. Fuck it. Bye.
Now listen to me, young man. I am talking directly into your ear now. I need you to do me a favor. You will do this for me. I need you to go to GameStop. I need you to ask the bastard working the counter if they have Bambi on the PS2. If you come back empty-handed, you'll be in big trouble, mister. You will never see the light of day.
Hey, Margaret, can you cut all of that and then put it at the end after the credits? Please just remove this from this section and then put it after the credits. So that anyone who listens to the whole episode gets a terrible surprise.